How's it going, everyone? Today I'm finally bringing you a review of our 2004 Saab 9.5 Aero. Now, a lot of people like to think that this is my car. I have two 9.3s. I have my Turbo X and I have my 9.3 ARC. This 9.5 is not mine, although I've made a handful of videos on the channel with it. It's not my 9.5, it's actually my dad's. Before I get fully started with this video though, I do want to mention that I finally received my shirt. This is the new shirt that I have out. Can't see it super well with my seatbelt on, obviously, but it is actually very nice quality. If you guys would like it, I do have some more designs coming out in the future, and if you would like a sneak peek of what those are, make sure to follow me on Instagram. So I want to start this video by talking about what the 9.5 is. So during this period, basically the GM era of Saab, they really had two main models, the 9.3 and the 9.5. The 9.3 was the most popular seller. It was the smaller car, and this, the 9.5, being the family sedan, the car that's a little bit bigger. Although, don't go thinking that you can't fit 5 people into a 9.3, you can. So the 9.5 didn't sell as well as the 9.3, but it was still a fairly common car. Now, there were 3 different trim levels for the 2004 model year, and for most model years. There was the Linear, which is the entry level, the ARC, which was probably the most common, and there was the Aero, which was this one. All of them came with a 2.3 liter B235 motor. This one has the B235R, which means it makes about 250 horsepower and a little bit more torque. I actually don't remember the exact torque number off the top of my head, but I know that's at least 250. I'll go ahead and put it down here on the screen. This specific Aero has the 5-speed automatic transmission. Most Aeros, or most 9.5s in general, came with the automatic. There aren't a whole lot of manuals out there, unfortunately. So the Aero is considered to be the top of the line 9.5. It's the highest model that you can get, and with that you got a lot of unique features over the ARC, or specifically the Linear. Along with getting more power and torque, you also got, on the 2004 and 2005 Aeros, the front bumper alone on this car is part of what makes it so desirable to Saab enthusiasts. It was only offered for 2 years, and quite frankly, I think that this is the best looking 9.5 out there. But outside of that, on the exterior you get a few other little bits, and you also get some 17-inch 5-spoke wheels, which in my opinion aren't the best looking, but they're definitely still cool. The inside though is where the Aero shines even more. Not only do you have these incredibly comfortable seats, and when I say incredibly comfortable, people like to say that the 9000 Aero seats are the most comfortable Saab seats ever made, but I think that these are just as good, if not better. The Aero seats just hug you so much better. They have these extra side bolsters, they're extremely plush and soft, and compared to my Turbo X seats, I like them more than my Turbo X seats. My Turbo X seats are, quite frankly, probably supposed to be better and sportier than these are. Outside of that though, you also get some nice, I believe it's supposed to be like an aluminum, like a silver trim instead of the wood trim that you would get in the ARC or the Linear. That looks absolutely fantastic in the Aero. You get that down around the shifter and also all around the dashboard. The gauge cluster, the steering wheel, the head unit, all that is standard Saab from this era. It'll all be very familiar to you if you've an old generation 9.5 or an old generation 9.3. The Aero also came with a Harman Kardon sound system that is pretty good, and I can't really convey that to you through the video, but it is a pretty good sound system. Let's go ahead and talk about handling, because the Aero also came with a bit firmer suspension than the ARC and the Linear. Now, I do like this, but compared to my Turbo X, which has coilovers on it and was sportier from stock than this was, it takes turns, you know, it'll take turns pretty well, but it's still gonna have a bit of body roll. It's, again, it's not bad. It handles well for being a front-wheel drive car and for being a car of this size, but it's not gonna be able to, you know, keep up with some other cars like a Turbo X or even like a 9.3 Aero around a track. I shouldn't say keep up with it necessarily, because while it couldn't keep up with a Turbo X, it could probably keep up with a 9.3 Aero. It's still, around the corners it wouldn't be able to keep up with it, especially with the cross-wheel drive that a Turbo X has. And I'm trying not to compare this to my Turbo X so much, because it's not really, in a way it's a fair comparison, but it's also not a fair comparison, so I'm trying to not compare it to my Turbo X, but I also want to compare it with the 9.3 for those of you that might be considering 9.3 or 9.5. But the 2.3 liter motor out of this is definitely one of Saab's most popular engines and easily one of their best engines, although the DICs in these are total crap. The automatics do come with a sport mode, which you can select by pushing the button right here on top of the shifter. And all that really does, from what I've noticed, is just basically make the throttle pedal super sensitive and make the transmission super like reactive to any sort of like throttle. It'll downshift really easily. I'll go ahead and gun it for you guys here real quick. So that wasn't bad. That was almost 60 there. I mean, it gets up and goes. It really does. This car has some Michelin Pilot Sport 3S tires on it, I believe. So it's got some really good brand new tires on it. So you have no problem with traction. One of my gripes with this car, especially since it's an Aero though, are the brakes. This has the same brakes as the Linear and the Arc, whereas in the 9.3 you got upgraded brakes, much bigger calipers and rotors if you had the Aero over the Arc or the Linear. So while the brakes on this car aren't bad by any means, and I'm not saying that they are, they do leave something to be desired considering the kind of brakes that you would have gotten on a 9.3 Aero. I do like the steering wheel on this car, although it's not nearly as good as my Turbo X steering wheel, but I'm kind of spoiled by that steering wheel. I think that's definitely the best steering wheel that Saab ever made. It's still a very nice steering wheel. And I just said steering wheel like 8 times in a period of 10 seconds there. A lot of people like to complain about the cheap GM plastic in the 9.3s, and this because it has a lot of the, to me it's more Saab with the head unit and the gauge cluster and everything. It's less GM. This doesn't have the same problem of peeling buttons as a Dame 9.5 would or a new generation 9.3 would, which is definitely a bonus. So while these buttons aren't like an amazing, super awesome quality, they're still good. One more point I do want to touch on for the 9.5 as a whole is safety. When Saab designed a new car, one of the things at the top of their checklist, the very top, was safety. If their car wasn't safe, it wasn't ready for the road. So when the 9.5 and the 9.5 Aero were produced, not only for it being a mid-size sedan, but for like all sedans and all cars, I believe it was just about the safest car out there that you could buy. And that's something to say. I mean, these things are absolute tanks. So if you were to get into a crash with a Saab, especially, you know, if you're a younger kid like me, not to say that I'm a kid anymore, because I'm not, but when I was looking at my first car three years ago or something, one of the big points, not necessarily to sell to my parents, because my parents were totally okay with me getting a Saab, but if you want a Saab, one big point that you can use to sell to your parents is, hey, this thing is incredibly safe. I mean, if I get into an accident with this, unless I'm, you know, running into a wall at 100 miles an hour, you're not really going to have to worry about me. I should be okay. I mean, I've seen posts on, I'm not going to try and rant too much here, I've seen posts on all different Saab Facebook groups and forums of, my car is completely destroyed, you can't even tell it's a Saab, but I walked away from this with a scratch on my arm and that was it. So if you guys are interested in seeing more 9.5 videos, I have done some on the channel. If you just go to my playlist that's titled Saab Stuff and scroll through that, you'll see a handful of videos with this car featured in it. So while it doesn't get as much screen time as my Turbo X, I do still try and make videos on it when I can. Of course, it's not my car, like I said. But yeah, I do really love this thing. Now, I wouldn't buy a 9.5 Aero and turn it into a track monster or something like that. I would buy a Vigan or a Turbo X to do something like that. But it's, as a daily driver, I mean, this thing is great. It gets about 23 miles per gallon, so you're still getting decent gas mileage with it. It's very comfortable, it's a great cruiser, it's very smooth even with the Aero suspension. It's a very relaxing driving experience. Engine is very quiet. I mean, you guys heard it when I floored it earlier, you could barely even hear the motor. So I figure I should throw in here at the end that this car is completely stock right now, though my dad might do a stage 1 tune to it later. He's not going to do anything like I've done to my Turbo X. If he does decide to mod it, it'll be very light. But if there are mods to come, I will certainly film it. And with that being said, guys, that's all I've got today for you. I will be doing an extra upload on Monday, I think. I should be. Don't hold me to that, but I should be. I plan on it. So make sure to look forward to that. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see y'all next time.